Well, we never tire of saying, He is risen.
He is risen indeed.
And so we gather in the light of resurrection, and we gather in the light of this new gift, and we ask ourselves what it means for us that God has done something so great on our behalf. We will get to that in a minute, but we do hope you stay around this morning because we have a petting zoo, if you saw that. We have eggs on the lawn. We have burritos. We even have Godzilla eating peeps in the decorations on the tables, if you'd like. And we want to thank everyone who's made these 3 holy days from Thursday to Sunday so wonderful for all of our musicians, our choir, our tech people, our youth director, our office staff, our volunteers. It takes a lot of work to enter into the mystery of everything Christ has done for us. I did feel that I should announce to you that we'd been doing our matching gift campaign, and I wanted to let you know that not only did we meet it, but we surpassed it. Yeah, that's right. You can do that. All right. Yep. Now, I did make the mistake of announcing that earlier, and someone goes, oh, good, then I don't have to give. I was waiting to see how much we needed to give. If you were one of those people sitting on the sideline, you can still give to the church. Don't forget you can make your gift to the church, but that allows us to do our ministry in the community. And we're so excited because there's a check sitting on my desk right now that will be presented to auto shop tomorrow to buy a car for a mom up the street at Victoria Elementary who needs that so she and her kids can keep living safely in our community. And that's taken about a month to get done. And actually someone in the church facilitated that. So thank you for your generosity. That's going to make sure that someone has a new day. And this is part of the Easter ethic, that we are contributing to the possibility and living with hope that in fact God will do something new and that we can be part of the newness and redemption of the creation that God has redeemed through the saving work of Christ. Now, if you joined us on Thursday, you heard about the gift of the Passover, how it was that God preserved a window for humanity to not just be subjected to the power of subjugation, slavery, the degradation of humanity and death, to live under the tyranny of Pharaoh, but to be free toward a new future. We talked about that on Holy Thursday, and the manifestation of that freedom is to live an ethic of mutual love. Love one another as I have loved you. Jesus says this is the new commandment. That was Thursday. And then on Friday, we talked about how it was that God brings Jesus as the truth into a world filled with lies, in a web of deception where everyone has their own personal goal and agenda, where they're trying to exert power and influence over others. The message of Jesus is announced. And the truth of Jesus is proclaimed, and not just in words, but with his life. And how it is that God dismantles this web of deceit and lies and the various power projects of individuals and governments and churches and anyone else. And then he redeems us. And we talked about how it is that humanity is no longer for sale. We can no longer reduce people merely to a kind of aspect of someone to be disposed of or consumed. The dignity of human beings has been secured through the one who is crucified. So we talked about that on Friday, and now here we are on Sunday. And I hope you'll realize that when we walked with Jesus on Thursday and Friday through his betrayal and death, we experienced the shame of the cross. This is the shame that people hide from when they've been violated, when they've been victims of violence, when they've been victims of something where they say, now keep that secret. We can't talk about that. This is the shame of the cross. But now we have, piercing through the shame, the glory of the cross. And so today we celebrate the glory of the cross, not because it was by itself anything but an instrument of death, but because God has now taken the very thing by which we violate the dignity of humanity, by which we degrade humanity to a place of death, and God has used it to save us. And so I hope that you will learn to see today through the eyes of the angels. This is a very important feature of the text. It says in the beginning, on the early first morning of Sunday, the women went to the tomb bearing spices they had prepared. And when they get to the tomb, 2 men in dazzling apparel stand next to them. And the men don't go, oh, good morning, ladies. You haven't heard yet, but quite a night. The angels didn't say that. The angel said, why are you looking for the living among the dead? As if it should be obvious what God has done. And this is the problem, is when you're so used to living with the shame of the cross, when you're so used to being burdened by the secrecy of violence and violation, you sometimes imagine that's the truest story about the world. It is yet true that these things have happened. Jesus was crucified, he was flogged, he was humiliated in front of the crowd. All of those things remain true. But at the heart of it now is the beating heart of resurrection. And so when the angels say, look at everything that's happened, and you should see resurrection as the central feature of the world. Why are you looking for the living among the dead? The angels are telling the women, it is time for you to stop covering the stench of death in your life with all of these herbs and spices so that death is manageable, so that violation is manageable, so that violence is manageable. Time to put down the spices, and it's time to realize that you can see this world with the angel eyes for what God has actually done. The shame of the cross is real, but the glory of the empty tomb is now the heart of history and the world. And to give those women credit, they understood that because they put the spices down and they ran and they become early preachers who tell the others, oh my gosh, he's not dead. He's alive. And they don't see it through angel eyes yet either because they are so consumed with their own experience of betrayal. Think of someone like Peter. Peter, who said to Jesus on Thursday night, I will go to prison with you, I will die with you before I betray you. And within mere hours, he's betrayed Jesus and denied him 3 times. Within hours of that proclamation. And it's not just the strength of the wine. It was the fearfulness, the fear of being arrested, the fear of being cast out, the fear of being beaten and crucified himself. He was afraid. And now he bears the shame of that. You can imagine his eyes are puffy from the crying, and he's not looking at the other disciples because they go, oh, wow, Peter, remember when you said you were going to go to prison with him and die with him? How'd that go? And well, come on, guys, it was a hard night for all of us. But he's living with the shame of having been so bold and realizing that he wasn't the man he thought he was, a kind of coward. But that cowardice wasn't unique to him. It's unique to humanity wanting to avoid what we think is the truest power in the world, the ability to coerce and to injure and to force people to do what you want through fear. And this is what has been destroyed on Easter, not just as an idea, but as a reality. Captivity has been made captive. Death has been killed through death. And so now we need the community of resurrection who, like those women, begin to proclaim. We need the community of resurrection who, like Peter, go and stare in the tomb going, what does this mean that he is not here? He didn't just disappear. He didn't just get sent into the ether going, well, he's out there somewhere. I hope he can hear me. He becomes who he was before on the other side of death. He lives with his disciples. He eats with them. He drinks with them. He teaches them. He takes our humanity to the right hand of the Father at the ascension, and he unites the divine and the human permanently. Meaning, the truest thing about the world is this morning, Easter. But if you do not see it with angel eyes, you can easily just live in the shame of the cross. And I said this on Thursday, your life is going to have to catch up to the gift of Easter. Your life is going to have to catch up to it because we are so used to living in the limitations of the Good Friday world that when Easter Sunday comes, we're not sure that it's anything but an augmentation or an adjustment, rather than an earthquake, a seismic shift, a new reality where new life is the standard now. Redemption is the standard now, not an exception. It is the standard by which we must live. And even Peter, when he goes to the house of Cornelius, he goes to a Roman centurion, and I bet you that centurion knew the centurion who stood at the foot of the cross. Maybe they went to boot camp together. Maybe they shared drinks together. Maybe they even ran a few people through with their spears and lances when they were young officers in the Roman military. This is someone who knows how to hurt and to kill and to be the tool of tyranny and violence. He is the living picture of Rome's power, and he can mess a person up if he needs to. And yet when Peter is among him, he doesn't experience that violence and violation. He experiences Holy Spirit. And he says, I now know that God shows no partiality, and that to anyone, anywhere in the world, they can do his will and be his people. This becomes the first Gentile convert to Christianity. And so this is Peter having to have his own life and expectations, which have been shaped by history, by real experience, changed, augmented, and redeemed because of the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of Easter, the Spirit of resurrection showing up and shifting the ground for everyone. Now again, the hurt was real, the grief was real, the hardship is real. So I'm not denying any of that. All of that stuff happened. That's the Friday stuff. And you all have that too. The grief has happened, the death has happened, the hardship. It's all real. We are not denying that it's real. We are just saying that God is redeeming all of it. Every part of it. This is why the Psalms talk about God counting our tears, God paying attention to us, God managing our pain, God caring for us, loving us, and finally resurrecting us. There is nothing you have experienced that God will not redeem. Nothing. There is no one who is more powerful than the one who raised Christ from the dead this morning. And if you think that the person who violated you or committed violence against you or who makes you afraid this morning or anxious today, whether they are here or somewhere far away, they do not have that power. Jesus said that to Pilate. You think you have power? The power you have or may have been given isn't even yours, but I'm going to show you real power. Real power is love triumphing over fear and death. This is God's vengeance. You want to know God's vengeance against everything humanity has experienced and visited on each other? It's not more pain, more death, more suffering. It's resurrection. That's God's vengeance. God's vengeance is healing. God's vengeance is wholeness. God's vengeance is light. And if you think that God is going to just deal death, you're dealing with a God who's merely a grown-up, magnified version of humanity rather than the Redeemer of humanity. God redeems our nature so that we can become witnesses to the resurrection. God has already done the work through the crucifixion and the resurrection. We now become proclaimers of this gift through our lives, through the sharing of light, through the carrying of healing, for taking care of neighbors, for connecting with those in need, by sharing hope, by buying a car for a mom at a school. All of these items become important ways that we share the gift of resurrection. We do not lose hope, we do not lose faith, and we live in love. He is risen.